Hello, folks. Welcome to this episode of Rich Insights. I'm Don Rich, Head of Investments for Esoterica Capital Markets. Today's topic is smartphones, right? Industry trends in the smartphone industry. Now, it's quite possible that the smartphone you're used to today is not going to be of the same brand next time you buy, or certainly the time after that. Right, we are talking about huge changes going on within the industry right now. Now, before we get started, I just want to state for full disclosure, some of the Chinese smartphone makers that we're going to talk about today, we do hold in the portfolios at Esoterica. All right, but I'm not focusing on individual companies. I'm talking about industry trends, right? That's the important thing to focus on today. There is a titanic shift going on within the smartphone industry, the handset industry. So let's go to the charts. Let's take a look at them. All right, here we have the battle for smartphones within China. Right? China is the biggest market in the world for smartphones and for a number of other products. Right? They sell over 400 million units a year. And you can see this tremendous growth in the colored bars. This tremendous growth. These are the four largest vendors in China. Xiaomi, Huawei, Vivo, and Oppo. The four largest vendors in China. So these are, again, smartphone shipments within China. And you can see the only international vendor here is Apple. The only international vendor with a meaningful presence is Apple. And Apple's share in 2019, the most recent data point we have, it's less than 10%. Less than 10% of all smartphones sold in China are Apple smartphones. Wow, the biggest market in the world. And Samsung's not a meaningful player, and Apple's no longer a meaningful player. I just find that remarkable. Let's go down and run through the bullet points. Again, I've mentioned most of these, but the battle in China is essentially over. It's already over. This battleground, 400 million units a year, it's done. Chinese vendors have went from nothing, essentially nothing, 11% in 2011 to 85% just a few years later. Just a few years later. Apple, as we mentioned, it has a larger market share than Samsung. I guess we can still call it meaningful, but we're talking about less than 10% and declining. The battle here is over. So, what's next? So, the battle within China is all said and done. Apple and Samsung are no longer the players they once were. The battle outside is where we're going next. Okay, let's. So here we're looking at the battle outside of China. All right, global shipments. Global shipments. Now, the first thing you notice from this chart is how level it's been. How level it's been. What does that mean? Well, for the most part, anyone that wants a smartphone in the world has one. Again, that's loosely speaking, but that's the information we're getting out of the charts. For the last 4 years, it appears we've reached a saturation point. Those that want a smartphone already have a smartphone. So that was the battle in the past. The battle today is when we replace these. What are we going to replace them with? All right, let's go back to the charts here. And again, you see the colored bars here. The colored bars are the sum of the four main Chinese vendors. Continual growth there. Compared that to the top is Apple's market share, fairly constant. And Samsung's market share, again, fairly constant. But the growth is not in Apple. It's not in Samsung. The growth is with the Chinese vendors. Why is that? Well, the quality of their handsets, the quality of their smartphones has improved so much. And the value the value. Now, they may not have all the bells and whistles. Not at this point. They have improved significantly, but they may not have all the bells and whistles that we're used to today. But that's likely to change as well. The top 4 now control over a quarter of the market. The top 4 Chinese vendors control over a quarter of the market. Again, in 2011, they didn't even show up on the chart. Today, it's 28% of the marketplace. So, the bottom line here, the punchline is what happened in China, or the China experience, seems to be what is evolving before our very eyes globally. The Chinese smartphone makers are taking over the market share. So again, going forward, it's not on the number of people that have these smartphones. It's going to be when we start replacing these and upgrading these. And the evidence shows it's unlikely our next phone, or at least a phone after that, it's unlikely it's going to be an Apple or a Samsung phone going forward. All right, so that's our message for today. I'm Don Rich. You've just experienced a rich insight. I hope you've enjoyed it. May your beer be colder than the company you keep. We'll talk again soon. Thank you.